AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Coming up at 7:35 this morning, National Security Analyst Katie McFarland. At 7:45, General Michael Hayden. And then at 8:05, this decorated Marine who was attacked by hoodlums in the District of Columbia in what he thinks is a hate crime. However, the police department doesn't seem to agree with that assessment. Chris Marquez will join us in studio at 8:05. I'm Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
Matt Schlapp is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. This is the group that puts on CPAC every year, and it's scheduled to start a week from this Thursday, a week from tomorrow, I should say, out at National Harbor, and we're always there. We'll be live doing our shows from Radio Row there, the whole WMAL family, Brian and I.
Yeah, I always love the CPAC thing.
It's always good stuff. And we asked Matt Schlapp to join us today to give us a quick preview of what's going to happen there at CPAC. But I got to say, the news events get in front of us here, Matt, and I guess a big story that we got to talk to you about is who might not be coming. Marco Rubio, we talked about it a little earlier in the program. Marco Rubio has not been able to commit to a time or a date, and based on an email exchange that has been released, you said, listen, we need a fish or cut bait here, totally understandable with such a large organization, and they said, well, we can't commit. So does that mean he's not coming? Where does it stand right now?
Well, let's start off with something positive, Larry. KT McFarland is coming, which makes our day. And
it sure does.
But you're right. I was disappointed to have my private emails leaked. I'm not the Secretary of State. I'm allowed to have private emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Although
I bet it was probably more secure.
I was disappointed that the campaign saw fit to do that. By the way, I have more than 20 back and forth emails that would show the 7-month process of trying to get a very simple yes or no answer from the campaign that has rubbed me a little raw, I'll be honest. That's kind of a long time. I was talking to Mercy about this last night, and she was like, when someone invites you to a wedding, eventually you got to say whether you're coming or not. And there's two options. There's yes, I'd be delighted to be there. There's no, I'm so sorry, I have regrets. There's no third option of something in the middle. And I think by those emails they released, they actually demonstrated what they were trying to tell me is, we're not going to go. We're not going to tell you no. We're going to tell you that maybe something will change in the future, and maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way to come. But of course, when you're putting together a complicated schedule with governors and senators and congressmen and media personalities and CEOs and other luminaries in society, where we're going to talk about the most important issues of the day, just like you do on your radio program, you eventually just got to set it. You got to set the schedule, and you got to start running the schedule, and it's rude to everybody else in the process who you can't confirm a time with.
Well, as you said, you got to fish or cut bait at some point. I get that. But in some comments that I saw attributed to you yesterday, the word was that you were leaving open the briefest of windows if they wanted to get their act together on this. Where is that?
That's right. I want to be clear, Brian. I mean, Marco Rubio is a friend of mine. He's a great conservative senator. He has a fantastic, something like a 97% score with us. He's a hero of ours. And for all these activists that spend quite a lot of money to buy an airline ticket, come out here, they stay in a hotel, which for them is probably one of the most expensive hotels you can think about staying. Bagels cost $5 at that hotel. There's a lot of money they put on the line. And, for them, they'd really like to see all the presidential candidates. And we have a 43-year history where that happens. 43 years. And so I want him to be there. I believe in happy endings. I talked to people high up in his organization last night. I've not talked to Marco. Obviously, he's very busy on the campaign trail. I understand that. And, I would be delighted for him to come. I'll never talk about this again. We'll give him a great experience. We'll be great hosts. And he'll be able to make his pitch and answer questions from the conservative activists who are there. And I think that's good for America.
Yeah, and I think it should be noted, Matt, and your wife Mercedes, who our audience is familiar with because she's been filling in a bit here on Mornings on the Mall. You both appear on cable news a lot to talk about the race, and you pretty much have something good to say about all these candidates. You save all of your negative remarks for the Democrats, which we appreciate very much, in fact. So it needs to be stated that this obviously isn't something personal with the Rubio campaign. In fact, tell me about the other campaigns. Is there anyone else of note who is not able to appear? I'm looking at this list. It's as long as Brian Wilson's arm, and
I have very long arms.
Yeah. Everyone else is coming. Marco's really the only odd man out here, right?
Well, I guess that was the part for me. Mercy and I have contributed to Marco. We've also contributed to Ted Cruz and others, but we've contributed to Marco. I've been on his finance committee. Mercy's from Miami. We feel like we know him well. I didn't expect that this would be, the ordeal it was.
Yeah.
But like I said, I believe in happy endings. You gotta love, this is why Donald Trump is kind of endearing to a lot of people. I sent an email to Donald Trump asking him to come. He does his typical black Sharpie pen Donald Trump big note back on the letter. Within a very short period of time, I had an email right back from him saying, I would in the CPAC. Little bureaucracy, a quick response, the right response.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz's campaign, they didn't really wait for us to invite them. They started calling us. Hey, when's CPAC going to be next year? We got to get a plan together. Want to make sure we make it a great event. So usually I have to admit we're usually a little more used to being courted than being the one to have to go court. But,
right.
It's just different in this case. And so, yeah, everyone's going to be there. I will say this. Of the 5 folks left in the race, 4 committed, and committed under a timeline that allowed us to make the announcements and everything else. We just had 1 who didn't. But like I said, hopefully that'll all get resolved.
All right, so is Jeb Bush going to still come?
Jeb Bush, I got to give Jeb Bush credit. He's not going to come, but he was planning on coming. He set his time early. He made a commitment last year to come, and he came, and he made a commitment this year to come, knowing that that's a tough audience for him, Brian.
Yeah, it is.
And he still had a time set. I respected him for that.
Let's talk about some of the other names that I think people are going to be excited about. We've got, first of all the candidates now except for Marco and Jeb, it looks like, candidates past and present. You mentioned Katie McFarland, but also Michelle Malkin, Mary Catherine Ham, Katie Pavlich, Sean Hannity, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. This is a great lineup.
Well, this looks like the rundown on Mornings on the Mall.
Yeah, it really is. Exactly. Well, that's a testament to both CPAC and Heather Hunter's great booking.
Yeah.
Are there surprise? There's always a surprise, Matt, and it usually is the keynote. Are you planning on a big keynote speaker? Last year there wasn't really one, was there?
See, Brian, this is the problem. Larry thinks I'm, got a low IQ. He's saying, are there any surprises? And he knows I have to say what the surprise is, and then it's not a surprise anymore.
So there is a surprise.
But there is a keynote. There is a keynote at the Reagan dinner, which is being sponsored by the Heritage Foundation and the National Rifle Association. And that's Carly Fiorina. She's going to come back, talk to the activists about where her head is after this great presidential run and experience she's had. And the keynote for the person who's going to close down the entire event is Glenn Beck, who hasn't been to a CPAC in almost 10 years, and we're really honored he's coming back.
All right. Excellent. Matt Schlapp, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
We'll see you at the
Thanks,
National
guys.
Harbor.
See you there.
All right.
See you in a week.